Work hard, play hard, the accepted custom of modern life. But it comes at a cost. We don't get enough sleep. Not sleeping will kill you quicker than not eating. And shocking new research reveals that sleep deprivation causes diabetes, heart attack, obesity, and even depression. This two-part series investigates the hidden dangers caused by lack of sleep. This episode exposes the latest science from around the world that proves tiredness damages our health and can be lethal. Experts tell us we need 8 hours sleep a night, but why? Our body requires 3 hours of shallow sleep, 3 hours of deep sleep, and 2 hours of dream sleep. Deep sleep revitalizes the body, and dreaming recharges the mind. But with the pressures of modern living, we get around 90 minutes less sleep a night than our ancestors did only 100 years ago. 1 in every 3 of us is sleep deprived and carries a sleep debt. A sleep debt is like nature's loan shark. It has to be returned or we pay the price. The most significant finding from this study is that sleep deprivation radically impairs performance. People make up to 10 times more mistakes when tired. Surveys show that shift workers make up 19% of the global workforce, but most get less than 6.5 hours sleep daily. So tiredness accounts for 1/3 of all workplace accidents. Now, disturbing new research reveals that worker fatigue can be lethal, especially in the healthcare industry.
Interns and residents in the US are working 100 hours per week. 1 out of 5 interns reports having made a fatigue-related mistake that has injured a patient, and 1 out of 20 interns reports having made a fatigue-related mistake that has resulted in the death of a patient.
Worker fatigue is dangerous, but there's an even bigger killer that affects us all. Australian research reveals that drowsy driving causes 1 out of every 4 vehicle accidents. In America, 80,000 people fall asleep at the wheel every day, and 8,000 die each year. On the 28th of February 2001, fatigue made the headlines in England when a drowsy driver was at the centre of an unprecedented tragedy.
Hello?
Hello, you're through to the police.
Hello, yeah, I've had an accident on the M62. I've gone off the embankment, down off the road, and I'm on a railway line.
Oh, right. And the vehicle's blocking, still on the railway line?
But a train's coming. Oh, no, oh, no!
Hello? Are you still there?
On that fateful morning, the vehicle left the motorway, went down an embankment and got stuck on a railway line. Minutes later, a high-speed passenger train hit the vehicle. The train derailed but kept going until it collided with a freight train travelling in the opposite direction. The final toll was 10 dead and 76 people injured. The driver of the car was 37-year-old Gary Hart. He claimed his car suffered mechanical failure, but experts suspected he fell asleep at the wheel. One of the men appointed to determine what caused the accident was Inspector Mark Iverson.
The scale of this particular accident was huge. It was classed as the highest speed road traffic accident in the world at the time, In order to put the case together, we obtained over 2,000 witness interview statements, and that's what the thrust of our investigation was, to establish whether it was linked to sleep deprivation or whether it was in fact a mechanical failure.
For the next 9 months, England's top sleep scientists and over 1,000 police officers processed forensic evidence. This was the first time a drowsy driver was on trial for causing multiple deaths. So several sleep experiments were conducted to quantify the link between tiredness and driver error. Crucial questions came under scrutiny, such as, was Gary Hart sleep deprived and could he have avoided the accident? A key piece of evidence came from the tyre marks.
Where he'd come off the carriageway and onto that grass verge, it was a very gentle drift. The 4 degrees angle is wholly consistent with a person having fallen asleep at the steering wheel.
When he tells the officers that he's been to bed for 2 to 2.5 hours, is in fact a lie.
Evidence and record showed us that he'd had either his landline, his mobile phone line or the internet connection open throughout the evening prior to the accident, and right through into the early hours of the morning. We were able to show categorically that he'd been awake and without sleep for 22 hours. I was in absolutely no doubt, based on all the evidence that we had, that Hart had fallen asleep at the wheel.
Gary Hart was found guilty on 10 charges of causing death by dangerous driving. It was the first time in the world a drowsy driver was made accountable for multiple deaths.
This whole catalogue of events was set in motion by a man who drove while seriously sleep deprived. He has fallen asleep at the wheel, and the result is the tragic accident where 10 people lost their lives.
Scientists now know that sleep deprivation affects the mind and can make us unstable, depressed, and even psychotic. But what does sleep loss do to the body? The research team in Philadelphia has recently discovered that tiredness reduces the body's resistance to disease.
We're doing studies right now looking at the immune system responses, and there's no question there are physiologic consequences to sleep loss that are at a fundamental biological level. The body behaves as though it's under viral attack or there's some risk of that. You can liken it to a kind of immune defense response.
But the most disturbing find is that sleep deprivation can affect appetite and cause obesity, especially in children.
Too little sleep in children has been associated with increased weight gain. Sleep duration of a child at 3 could predict their obesity at age 7. Whenever the sleep seems to get shorter than 7 hours a night, the risk for obesity goes up. People who decrease their sleep time tend to get heavier faster.
When we deprive healthy young individuals of deep sleep, we find that they are at an increased risk of diabetes because their sensitivity to insulin is lower and their beta cells in the pancreas are unable to release enough insulin to compensate for that. The body is interpreting sleep deprivation as a stress, and stress-responsive systems will actually inhibit the pancreas from producing insulin. Chronic sleep deprivation may increase the risk of diabetes by about 50%.
Tiredness drives us to eat more because it upsets the balance of the hormones that control appetite.
When you are chronically deprived of sleep, you also begin to release the hormone ghrelin, which is a stimulant to our appetite, makes us feel hungry. And the hormone leptin, which is normally a signal that we've had enough to eat, is decreased in its abundance in our bloodstream. And so suddenly we're getting a stimulus that says, I'm hungry and I'm not satisfied with what I've had. And so we become ravenous, and that may be underlying the epidemic of obesity in our society.
This sleep deprivation experiment has shown that it affects your body physically and mentally, and it points to self-destruction. So if you want to live a normal, healthy life, you need good sleep.
Scientists have proved that even a small amount of sleep deprivation can lead to a number of diseases. All agree that sleep must be treated with respect and not as something disposable.
I think our society is so sleep deprived that we don't remember what it's like to be wide awake. We all walk around in these fogs and we drink our caffeine to help us maintain that alertness, but it's a shabby attempt at producing real full awakeness.
I would be willing to say right now, based on everything I know, there's no chemical substitute for sleep.
Sleep is really the third pillar of health. Like nutrition and exercise, sleep is every bit as important in order to be healthy and effective in what we do during the day.
Like it or not, nature designed our bodies to get 8 hours sleep every night. We mess with nature at our peril. In the next episode, we investigate the causes and cures for insomnia, a disorder that will affect 50% of us at some time in our life.